From strange cruise liners to the biggest oil tankers, these are 10 giant abandoned shipwrecks. Number 10. New Carissa. Owned by the Japanese company Nippon Yusen Kaisha, the New Carissa was a dry bulk freighter which primarily transported wood chips. If you're wondering what the hell a 36,000-ton ship is doing carrying around wood chips, you aren't the only one. As these stories usually go, the ship's crew were warned about entering Coos Bay due to bad weather. The ship was empty at the time, and the captain ordered the crew to drop anchor 2 miles off the coast. The weather conditions got worse, and before you know it, the ship started moving. The worst part was that the crew did not even notice the movement. The ship ran aground. A while later, it broke in two, as is customary. Then, before all the fuel had spilled causing an ecological disaster, it was burned with napalm. The bow was towed out to sea and sunk. The stern was part of the scenery until 2008, when it was dismantled. Surely some metal is left over in the shallow waters near Coos Bay. Number 9. MV Selendang Ai. In 2004, the MV Selendang Ai was halfway through a routine trip from Seattle, Washington to Xiamen, China, with a cargo of 66,000 tons of soybeans. Alright, pause for a second. Who else is amazed by the amount of cargo these ships can handle? And more importantly, where the hell do you get 66,000 tons of soybeans to begin with? Just crazy. Everything was going well until a small malfunction with the engine. Well, it was small at first, but with each passing hour, more things went wrong. The ship started drifting towards land at 1.6 knots, or 1.8 miles per hour. The crew was desperately trying to fix the issues with the engine, but time and weather were against them. Tugboats failed and anchoring failed as well. The ship was headed for land and there was no stopping. During the rescue of the crew, a rogue wave broke over the ship and hit the helicopter. Unfortunately, the helicopter crashed into the ocean. 6 crew members were never seen again. Number 8. The MV Argo Merchant. This oil tanker story begins in 1953, and believe you me, it's murky to say the least. The Argo Merchant was involved in over 12 major maritime accidents. The ship was grounded twice, but the third and final incident was the worst. The MV Argo Merchant found itself too close to the shore southeast of Nantucket Island in Massachusetts. What followed was one of the worst environmental disasters on the East Coast. On December 21, 1976, only 6 days after grounding, the ship broke apart and 7.7 million gallons of oil emptied out into the ocean. Luckily, the winds carried the oil slick away from the shore. Number 7. The MVE Evangelica. This is one of the few ships on our list that was actually involved in the Second World War. But that had nothing to do with its ultimate fate. The MVE Evangelica had many names. It took its maiden voyage as the Empire Strength, and it was designated as a refrigerated cargo ship. The main route of the ship was England to Australia, and eventually it traveled to Argentina as well. Right now, you can still see the remains of the Evangelica if you're willing to travel to the Black Sea. It's in very good condition, considering the ship ran aground in 1968. Sooner or later, the sea will claim it as its own, but until then, enjoy the rusted metal, I guess. Number 6. The SS Palo Alto. Built in Oakland, California, the SS Palo Alto was a concrete ship. Wait. What? Yeah, you heard that right. Concrete ship. It turns out it was a lot cheaper to find the materials, but the labor and operating costs were higher than usual. So fair trade-off, I guess? Anyway, the ship was completed in 1919, too late to see any action in the war. In 1929, a company decided to turn it into an amusement park. A pier was built to reach the ship, but not even 2 years later, the company went bankrupt. Nothing of note has happened since then. The ship can still be found at the Seacliff Beach. And oh yeah, apparently in 2005, it was found out that the concrete ship was leaking fuel. Why it still had fuel in its tanks almost 100 years later is a mystery for another time. Number 5. Temple Hall. Finding information on this shipwreck was harder than I thought. Built in 1954, the Temple Hall changed many owners during its years of operation. On a voyage from San Pedro to Thessaloniki, the ship was stuck between a rock and a hard wave, so to say. Bad weather, heavy seas, and no luck to be found, the Temple Hall, now known as the Telamon, ran aground near the Canary Island, Lanzarote. It didn't help that the maintenance record for the ship was abysmal. You can still find it at the exact same spot, some 40 years after it wrecked. Number 4. Zayla Shipwreck. Zayla was a fishing trawler way past its prime, and it's also the smallest ship on this list. Built in 1975, the trawler did its job until the late 2000s, and by 2008, it was on its way to Bombay to be used as scrap metal. Unfortunately, the Zayla's tow line snapped and the ship headed for the shore. If you follow this channel, you know my fascination with the skeleton coast of Namibia. Just another example of why this strange and bizarre place is worth a visit. The northern Namibian coast is known under many different names. Portuguese explorers called it the Gates of Hell. Local tribes named it the land God made in anger. The one that stuck out the most was the Skeleton Coast, coined by the writer John Henry Marsh from a book he wrote by the same name. From derelict buildings, hundreds of shipwrecks, and thousands of whale and seal bones, the Skeleton Coast lives up to its name. And you should definitely check out the video I just linked to. Number 3. Mega 1 Triton. With a name like that, you might expect something a bit bigger, but life ain't fair, kid. During Hurricane Sandy, Mega 1 Triton was one of the unlucky vessels that was ran aground due to the weather. Since 2012, it has become a tourist destination for those that are interested in urban exploration. This counts as urban exploration, right? After all, it is right on the beach. The local government strongly advises the public to stay away from the wreck since the ship is deteriorating very fast. But I'm not sure anyone is heeding their advice. There was plans to remove the ship from the coastline by December of 2017, but has it happened yet? I don't think so. Number 2. Aglios Dimitrios. This shipwreck was also tricky to find. I have some contradicting information on the exact name of the ship. I found sources that listed it as MV Cornelia and others that called it Dimitrios. So if anyone can shed some light on the subject, that would be great. The ship was built in 1950 and its history is a bit mysterious. Stories of smuggling cigarettes and ghosts have been circling since it wrecked in 1981. The cigarette smuggling story is much more believable. Sorry, ghost hunters. It goes something like this. The Dimitrios was seized at port after contraband cigarettes were found on board. Instead of paying the fines and dealing with authorities, the ship was purposefully released from the port and left to run aground, where all the evidence was set on fire. What do you think? Plausible? Number 1. Ocean Dream. I have been waiting to write about this cruise ship for months now. I finally found enough pictures to entertain you with while I haphazardly try to explain the story behind the ship. Built in the 70s under the name Spirit of London, this cruise ship enjoyed a long and illustrious career in the high seas, providing comfort and entertainment for many people. But all good things must come to an end, and in February 2016, the Ocean Dream met Old Lady Fate. What's crazy is that the cruise ship was sold for scrap metal in 2009, but before it was destroyed, another cruise company bought it. Turns out, those guys weren't cool at all. They left the ship near Lam Chabang in Thailand. The cruise liner was abandoned for over a year by crew and maintenance. It finally capsized in February of 2016. I would definitely suggest not booking a cruise on the Ocean Dream, even though the website is still offering it. There is evidence that a company tried to salvage the ship, but I don't think that's happening anytime soon. From pirate shipwrecks to forgotten airplanes, These are 10 abandoned ships and planes across Europe. Number 10. Nicosia Airport Airplanes, Cyprus. Located in Cyprus, Nicosia International Airport has been abandoned since the 70s. The site was used as the principal airport for Cyprus starting in the 1930s. It was commissioned by the Royal Air Force and it was heavily used in the Second World War. On July 20th, 1974, Nicosia was bombed heavily due to the Turkish invasion of Cyprus. Whatever was left from the airport was abandoned forever. So why wasn't it completely destroyed? Why is there remnants of planes at the site? Those are good questions to ask. The United Nations designated the airport as a buffer zone between the opposing forces, and all soldiers were ordered to move away from it. Nowadays, there are just a tiny few UN helicopters that still utilize parts of the airport. As for the abandoned planes, it's not looking good. Number 9. The Shipwreck, Scotland. This beauty has definitely become part of the scenery at Lake Lynn, or Loch Lynn if you're being dogmatic. The ship began its journey in 1975 under the name MV Dayspring. It was built as a fishing vessel and it got the job done for decades. In 2001, under new ownership, the ship was now renamed to the Golden Harvest. Not long after, the fishing vessel was all but abandoned at a pier. When the chain holding the ship failed during a heavy storm, the ship found its way to the shores of Loch Lynn. Since 2011, the Golden Harvest has been slowly deteriorating. I assume the relatively calm lake is the only reason why this ship is still intact. It's not grandiose, it's not tragic, it's not mysterious, but it is a beautiful little abandoned ship. Number 8. Elliniko Airport, Greece. Located in Athens, the Elliniko Airport was the main international airport for 60 years. Things went south for the place in 2001 when it was replaced by Eleftherios Venizelos, the new Athens International Airport. At its peak, Elliniko served around 13 million passengers yearly. In 2004, a lot of the area was repurposed for the 2004 Summer Olympics. Google Earth provides a glimpse into what remains of all those renovations. Pretty much nothing is operating. On the other end of the airport, we stumble across parked airplanes that are doing nothing but collecting dust. The planes belonged to Olympic Airways. However, the airline ceased operations in 2009. There is no clear answer as to what will happen to this tiny fleet, but the outlook is not great. There have been talks about turning the whole complex into a massive park, but without a big influx of money, nothing will change. Number 7. Garthar BA-64, Iceland. Garthar BA-64. Did I say that right? I think I did. Anyway, the BA-64 is considered the oldest steel ship in Iceland, and spoiler alert, it's not in operation. It was designed to be a whaling ship, and it set sail the same year the Titanic sank. In its long career, the Globe 4, as it was originally known, changed many owners and names. When the whaling business was riddled with regulations, the powerful ship was repurposed to fish herring. By the time the 80s rolled around, Garthar was no longer deemed safe to use. Instead of leaving the ship at a pier indefinitely, the owners decided to drag the ship aground. There's no active preservation groups that care for it, so the ship is slowly falling apart. Number 6. MIL Mi-4, Bulgaria. Are helicopters airplanes? No, they're not, but it's the only thing I could identify from the Krumovo Aviation Museum graveyard. Side note, here's my favorite expression about helicopters. Helicopters don't fly, they simply beat the air into submission. Side note, the two words that make up the word helicopter are helico and pter. This particular MIL Mi-4 has definitely seen better days. These choppers were built by the Soviet Union and saw extensive use in military and civilian life. A quick look on the inside gives you an idea of how big these guys were. I can't find much information about the abandoned airplanes at the location, but hey, At least there's pictures. Anyone venture to guess what this model is? Or this one? Comment below. Number 5. MV Panagiotis, Greece. Chances are, there's no way you haven't seen this ship before. Located on the popular tourist island of Zakynthos, the ship is now known as the Navagio Wreck, named after the beach on which it lays. The story of the shipwreck is probably embellished for dramatic effect. The Panagiotis was in the business of smuggling cigarettes. After a brief chase with authorities, it ran aground. It may look like it's hundreds of years old, but the incident occurred in 1980. Wait, 1980 is like 40 years ago. Man, we're getting old. Navagio Beach has become a great place to visit. Just watch out for the base jumpers. Number 4. Douglas C-47B, Croatia. This particular C-47 is found at the Želeva Air Base, which was the largest air base in former Yugoslavia. Nowadays, we say it's located between Croatia and Bosnia and Herzegovina. There's also another abandoned C-47 from former Yugoslavia that is stored at a municipal airport in Croatia. The truth is, more and more of these Dakota/Sky Fortress planes will find their way on abandoned lists. The Želeva Air Force Base in former Yugoslavia was the largest one in the country and one of the largest in Europe. The more interesting part of the base was the underground bunkers, capable of surviving a 20-kiloton nuclear blast and being self-sustainable for up to 30 days. The airbase was destroyed by the Yugoslavian government. Nowadays, it is sometimes used for police training, but its primary purpose is an awesome urban exploration spot. Number 3. Olympia Shipwreck, Greece. It seems like 1980 was a really bad year to be a Greek smuggler operating by water, aka a pirate. Locals say that a mischievous captain looking to escape the bad weather in the area sheltered near the Kalotaritisa beach. Strong waves pushed the ship to the shore and sealed its fate forever. Since then, the ship has been battered by the sea. It eventually broke in half, but damn does it still look cool. Ironically, the ship was originally named Inland. Why someone would name a ship inland is a mystery for another day. Number 2. The DC, Iceland. This is the US Navy Douglas Super DC-3 wreck site. On November 24, 1973, the plane crash-landed here, but due to the remoteness of the location, the plane was never recovered. Since then, it has become one of the most popular tourist spots in Iceland. But eventually, all good things must come to an end. The local farmers that own the land have completely shut down access to the wreck since tourists did not care about the local environment. I'm sure there is a possibility of private access if you're nice enough. Before we jump into number 1, let's look at some honorable mentions. I found this shipwreck off the coast of Norway. There was no information on it that I could dig up, but it looks pretty brutal. As it turns out, Portugal has a lot of abandoned ships left to the elements at different ports across the country shores. There is also this much larger ship slowly sinking off of the coast of Mersin, Turkey. Finally, I found this decommissioned passenger ship hidden somewhere off the coast of Italy. It definitely looks like this ship has seen better days. Don't forget to let me know what you think about this video in the comments below. Number 1. Mediterranean Sky, Greece. I really didn't plan to include so many ships located in Greece, but it's not my fault that it's so hard to navigate these waters. The Mediterranean Sky, originally named the City of York, was built in 1952. While it did have a long career, things took a dark turn in 1997. The company that purchased the ship was having some financial troubles, and eventually the ship was seized at port. By 2003, the ship was in pretty bad shape. It began to list, so they moved it closer to shore. The end result is what we see in these pictures. It's not clear if the cruise ship will be left here indefinitely, but I haven't found any information indicating otherwise. From ghost ships and deep ocean wrecks to forgotten airplane locations, these are 9 strange abandoned ships and planes. Number 9. Lady Be Good. The U.S. Air Force B-24D Liberator, nicknamed Lady Be Good, departed the Solok Field Air Base in Libya on April 4, 1943. It was headed towards Naples, Italy for a bombing mission, and on the return trip, the plane was spotted flying over the airbase in a massive sandstorm. It wasn't seen again for over 15 years. In 1958, British Petroleum spotted the wreckage during an oil exploration program. The plane was 2 hours south of their final destination, and efforts to locate remnants of the crew were successful. All but one crew member was accounted for. Co-pilot Robert Toner recorded the grueling plight of his crew in the middle of the Calancio Sand Sea. The 8 members survived for 8 days on one canteen of water and managed to walk 81 miles as a team. Then they split up again and again. The final remains were found a further 27 miles away. It gets stranger. In 1994, Lady Be Good was removed from its resting place and some parts were flown back to the USA. Some of those parts were salvaged and reused in other planes. One C-54 that received transmitters from the crashed plane had to throw away its cargo so it can land safely because of issues with its propeller. A C-47 that had a radio receiver crashed into the Mediterranean. Finally, a DHC-3 Otter crashed in the Gulf of Sidra. One of the few things to wash ashore was the armrest from the Lady Be Good. Number 8. Lyubov Orlova. Lyubov Orlova was named after the famous Russian actress by the same name. Built in 1976 by the USSR, she served as an expedition cruise ship, traveling around the Arctic and Antarctica often. In 2010, Lyubov Orlova was seized at St. John's Port, Newfoundland, because of accrued debts amounting to $251,000. It stayed at that port for the next 2 years, and when it was being towed to the Dominican Republic to be scrapped, something happened. Not even 1 day into the journey, the tow lines broke and the ship drifted away. Incredibly, she was captured again by a Transport Canada tugboat and dragged away to international waters, where she was cut loose again. The last time Lyubov Orlova was spotted was in 2013 near the coast of Iceland and Ireland. Apart from that, nobody really knows where this ship went. Number 7. Keybird. While the US Air Force was trying to spy on the Soviets in 1947, Keybird, a Boeing B-29 Superfortress, part of the 46th Reconnaissance Squadron, crash-landed in Greenland. The crew had to suffer in the Arctic climate for 3 days, but luckily there were no casualties. The plane was left to the elements and the US Air Force surrendered any claim to the B-29, meaning if you wanted it, it was yours. In 1994, Darryl Greenmeyer was like, yeah, I want that plane. And under the guise of the Keybird Limited Liability Company, his crew set out on a salvage mission. It didn't go so well. The Keybird caught on fire because the fuel tank started leaking, and the plane is still there. It's just a bit crispier. Number 6. TSS Duke of Lancaster. The TSS stands for Twin Screw Steamship or steamer, meaning it has 2 screw propellers compared to a single screw steamer, which has 1. The more you know. From 1955 to 1979, the ship provided services for travelers around the United Kingdom until it was forever beached near Mostyn, North Wales. At this point, the Duke of Lancaster was branded as the Fun Ship, becoming a tourist attraction. But local politics made it almost impossible for the owners to operate the business, so it shut down. Number 5. The US Navy F-4U Corsair airplane. The Vought F-4U Corsair was the most capable and widely used fighter bomber of the Second World War, and its use extended to the Korean War. US military figures show that the plane was used in 64,951 operational sorties, or offensive attacks. That's 44% of all the attacks carried out by the US during the war. This is one of those planes, found off the coast of Honolulu. It is believed that the pilot ditched the plane after running out of fuel. It must have been a scary situation. Since the wreck is only 100 feet underwater, it makes for a great diving location. Number 4. The MS World Discoverer. The World Discoverer was a cruise ship that operated from 1975 to 2000, visiting such great spots as Antarctica, Argentina, Chile, and the Falkland Islands. The ship was loved by many, but on April 30th, 2000, the ship hit a huge uncharted rock near the Solomon Islands. All passengers were transported to safety while the captain stayed on the ship, steering it into the Roderick Bay. At that point, the ship was considered a loss, and to this day, the World Discoverer remains at the same location. It has become somewhat of a tourist destination, being visited by other cruise ships in the area, which is kind of unsettling. Number 3. The Atka B-24D Liberator. This plane was sent out on a reconnaissance mission on December 9th, 1942, and it never returned. Due to bad weather, the crew decided to deliberately crash land on Atka Island, part of the Aleutian Islands of Alaska. The Liberator was never salvaged and is now part of the World War II Valor in the Pacific National Monument, just like the USS Arizona. Number 2. The SS America, or the SS American Star. This ocean liner served many different owners under different names, including the US Navy under the name of USS West Point. After its illustrious 54-year career, the SS America was being transported from Greece to Thailand to become a 5-star docked hotel ship. The journey began on New Year's Eve 1993, and a few days later, during a massive storm, the tow ship Neftegas 67 lost control of the SS America. The ship, now renamed the American Star, found its way to the coast of Fuerteventura and ran aground. Within 48 hours, the harsh waves of the Atlantic Ocean split the ship in two. She was declared a total loss and left to rot. At this point, there's almost nothing left from the ship, only a distant memory. And now some honorable mentions. First up, we have the Pinal Air Park in Arizona. It is incredible how many planes are just sitting around collecting dust. Trust me, this isn't even the biggest airport boneyard in Arizona, let alone the world. Some of the planes are destined to be scrapped. Others are just parked there, waiting for a buyer or a surge in demand. That's just crazy. Without having to draw me like one of your French girls, let's take a look at the remnants of the RMS Titanic, the most famous unsinkable shipwreck there ever was. The location of it was discovered in 1985 and caused quite a stir. The USA took the first steps to protect it with the RMS Titanic Maritime Memorial Act, but that couldn't really stop anyone since the wreck was in, international waters. Finally, let's look around the Kudinka Aerodrome. Nowadays, it's a graveyard for various military helicopters and planes. The last news article mentioned something about a revival of the airport, but it will most likely be replaced by condominiums. Number 1. Murmansk. The cruiser Murmansk was built by the Soviet Union in 1955, and it served proudly until 1989. A few years later, the Russians decided to sell the cruiser to India for scrapping. During the move, the ship ran aground near the Norwegian coast. Shortly after, this haunting picture was taken. The ship looks like it's almost in perfect condition, except for, being almost sideways, but whatever. Anyway, no one wanted to deal with the cleanup until 2009. That's when everyone realized that due to the extremely harsh weather, the ship would have to be dismantled piece by piece. So that's what the Scandinavian contractor AFDCOM did. They built a dock around the ship and emptied out the water. This picture was taken during that process. You can see that it was really a team effort. From mysterious ships in Russia to junkyard military jets, these are 10 strange abandoned ships and planes. Number 10. Test Site Plane, Russia. We kick off this list with a derelict site found in the Leningrad Oblast of Russia. I spent way too much time trying to figure out the exact location, and I have had no luck. The test plane looks like an earlier model of the Sukhoi Su-24. The plane looks extremely close to the Su-7, and if I'm correct, that means this test site dates back to the 60s, which was an interesting time for both the USSR and the USA. Trying to find this spot on Google Maps also proved difficult, since the pictures I found had absolutely no details, just that it was an abandoned test site in the Leningrad Oblast in Russia. For those of you wondering, Leningrad was renamed to St. Petersburg, but the oblast, or county/area, was never changed. Well, if anyone has any idea what this place was or where it is, please share the knowledge in the comments below. Number 9. MV Cygna, Australia. In 1974, the MV Cygna, a Norwegian boat carrier, was caught in the middle of a major storm near the coast of New South Wales, Australia. Stockton Beach, to be more exact. To make things worse, the MV Cygna was on its maiden voyage, meaning it was the first journey of the ship. The MV Cygna was 4 miles off the coast, waiting to load up with 50,000 tons of coal. Wind gusts reached 100 miles per hour, and the captain decided to set sail. Unfortunately, the orders came way too late. The Cygna was unable to escape the storm, and it ran aground. Abandoned ship orders were given because of the beating the ship was receiving, and the rescue was no walk in the park. But all 31 sailors made it out alive. During the first salvage operation, the ship broke in two. The second operation didn't go as planned either. Only the bow section of the ship was salvaged. The rest has become an iconic part of Stockton Beach. Here's a little progression of the ship over the years. This is after 10 years, 30 years, and 42 years. Number 8. Bristol Freighter, New Zealand. Pure competition. Thanks for the lead, man. I love reading all the comments and suggestions. It's always great to hear what everyone thinks of my content, so give me your suggestions and comments below. The Type 170 freighter was built by the British Bristol Airplane Company, starting in 1946. It was mainly used to transport people and cargo. It had a long career in the military and civilian markets, but it was not without hiccups. Of the 214 planes produced, 68 were damaged or destroyed in accidents. That's 31%, which seems pretty damn high. For comparison, the Boeing 747, introduced in 1968, has had a total of 61 destroyed planes, or 4% of the total. A little side note, the Boeing 737 has been involved in 112 hijackings. I don't know how I came by this statistic, but it just seems so crazy. I just had to share it with you all. The Bristol Freighter was widely used in Australia and New Zealand, and believe it or not, one of the last few remaining planes can be found at the Ardmore Airfield near Auckland, New Zealand. The plane has been collecting dust there for ages, and an active aerospace charity organization in Bristol, UK wants to take this plane back. I found some conflicting information, but I believe that the plane has not made its way back to Europe just yet. What do you think? Should the plane stay in New Zealand or be brought back to the UK? Number 7. Landevenec, France. What started off as a naval reserve station in the 1800s has turned into a relatively calm and secluded ship graveyard. Located in northwestern France and locally referred to as Landevenec, this ship graveyard almost lost all its occupants at one point. And let's face it, you can't have a ship graveyard with no ships in it. Maybe graveyard is not the right word to use for this location in the first place. It's more like a location that houses ships until their ultimate fate is decided. Are they going to be used as breakwaters or possibly blown up in training exercises? Find out next week on Abandoned Ancient Alien Spaceships, only on World Unearthed. Number 6. Douglas C-47B Dakota, Croatia. If you have followed this channel for a while, you might be wondering why there's just so many C-47 Dakota planes just littered around the world. Well, over 10,000 units were produced. It was used extensively in World War II, and the plane is still in active service in countries like Colombia, Greece, and South Africa. This particular C-47 is found at the Želeva Air Base, which was the largest military airbase in former Yugoslavia. Nowadays, we say it's located between Croatia and Bosnia and Herzegovina. There's also another abandoned C-47 from former Yugoslavia that is stored at a municipal airport in Croatia. The truth is, More and more of these Dakota planes will keep popping up on abandoned plane lists. Number 5. Edro 3, Cyprus. The Edro 3 is another Norwegian cargo ship that had an unfortunate history. The ship ran aground near Pegaea, Cyprus. As always, rough seas and bad weather were blamed for the wreck. There was no salvage operations attempted, but the ship was emptied of all cargo, fuel, and oil, and everything that will negatively impact the local environment, except for the ship itself, because I guess that doesn't matter. Articles state that it is now forbidden to visit the ship because it's deemed too dangerous, which means at some point people were allowed to explore it, which must have been a pretty cool experience. As if one shipwreck wasn't enough, you can also find the remains of the MV Demetrius II nearby. That one seems to not have fared as well as Edro 3. Number 4. BKK Airplane Graveyard, Thailand. I'm not sure if this is an official or a regulated airplane graveyard. The first time I heard about this place, the visitors said that there were multiple families living inside these abandoned hulls. And it just seems so random. I mean, tall grass, no security, no fencing. It's almost as if someone decided it would be a good place to dump an airplane. And other people and companies just followed suit. Number 3. U.S. Navy Reserve Fleets, USA. If international political tensions get to a point where the US Navy decides to revive their mothball fleets, just run for the hills and hope for the best. Found from the sunny coasts of California to the murky rivers of Virginia, these fleet reserves are a strange sight to experience. The ships are seemingly stationed in their own parking lots, just missing the little white painted lines. The James River Reserve Fleet used to have 60 ships. Nowadays, it's dwindled down to only 6. All the other ones have been scrapped. The Suisun Bay Reserve Fleet, located in the greater San Francisco Bay, has a few more ships and looks cool from the air. There are more fleets that vary in size, and for the most part, there's just temporary parking for ships before they are ultimately scrapped. Number 2. Unknown. Well, it's not really unknown anymore. When I first started writing about this plane, I had no idea where or what it was. Then I contacted the photographer who took these pictures, and she shared some more information with me, but nothing too detailed. Finally, I think I figured it out. These pictures were taken at Wade's Salvage in New Jersey. Probably. I'm not sure. The photographer said it was a small place south of Philly, and this location definitely fits the description. And what I am not so sure of is why there is a scrapped US Air Force plane in some random salvage yard. Does the military just give them away? Number 1. Kamchatka Ship Graveyard, Russia. Should I have just made a list of airplane and ship graveyards? Maybe. In the barren lands of the Kamchatka Peninsula, near the city of Petropavlovsk, you can find yourself surrounded by snow, ice, and abandoned ships. I believe there are multiple locations in the area that have abandoned ships. You can see some in this aerial photo that look like they're in a pretty bad shape. And this photo has been circulating blogs since 2008. Many people called it fake, and many people wanted to know some more information. But even now, almost 10 years later, this set of photos is the only one from the region. The two fellas in the photo look so calm standing next to the massive rusting ship. If you had the chance to explore around the icy waters, would you? I think these are some abandoned ships I would not want to go near. Google Street View provides a rare glimpse into the area. It sure looks a lot different when the bay is not frozen over. Check out the featured comment below, subscribe for more World Unearthed, and I'll see you in the next video.